What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Dean Roll Jr., your realtor's favorite realtor, proudly serving the Hampton Roads area. Welcome to Real Estate Live. If you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified when I drop new videos. Today, we're reacting to a video by Memeable Data called Every Level of Wealth in 13 Minutes. I saw this thumbnail and figured it'd be a good video to react to. Y'all know on this channel, we react to stuff worth reacting to. So let's hop straight into it.
Imagine the world is represented by these bubbles. If we resize them according to the population size, we get this picture. I'm going to rank them from poorest to richest and show you how people live around the world. We'll start with farmers living with less than $2 per day and climb all the way to Elon Musk.
All right, so we're talking about money today. Money, of course, is not the most important thing on the world, but it is a very important thing. And we look like we're talking about different levels of wealth. Some people think they're rich who aren't rich. Some people think they're poor who aren't poor. Wealth is, at the end of the day, it's a very subjective thing. Now, mind you, money is money. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. But the amount of money that you need to be happy is going to be solely dependent on the way you view the value of money.
You probably can't answer these two simple questions about the world. Fewer than 2% of my viewers got them right.
Okay.
Question 1. Where does the majority of the world population live? A. Low income, B. Middle income, or C. High income countries? And 2. Since year 2000, has global wealth inequality A. increased, B. stayed the same, or C. decreased?
All right, so where does the majority of the world population live? Low income countries, middle income countries? I'm gonna go with, for some odd reason, I'm gonna go with low income countries. And the wealth inequality has increased.
Hold on to your answers, we'll come back to them. This video was inspired by the book Factfulness, and I also took inspiration from these videos. I'm gonna rank our countries starting at the bottom.
Where Dominica?
According to the World Bank, the 10 countries with the lowest GDP per capita in the world are all African countries.
Damn.
The more the bubbles are to the left, the lower the GDP per capita. And the country with the lowest GDP per capita is Burundi. Let's see how people live there. The median wage in Burundi is $1.80 per day. Each woman has an average of around 5 children. Child mortality is high, and 5% of children don't make it to 5 years old. Families are large, and most of them depend on agriculture to make a living. Most people live in rural areas, often in houses made with mud bricks. The Gapminder Foundation documented how families live around the world.
So as y'all know or may not know, my parents are actually from the West Indies. They're from Dominica. I'm not saying it says, the living situation is similar to this by any means, but when people go to places where, they're not used to seeing less availability of small things that they take for granted, it kind of makes you think about, the way that, life is really meant to be lived. Like, in America, we value a lot of things that are very, very, materialistic. We almost like put emphasis on that. We need these things, which you really don't need to survive, man. Sometimes you gotta scale it back a little bit to really understand if you live in the way you're living is really right or wrong.
And made their footage freely available. This family with 1 woman and 4 children had a total income of 90 cents per day. They live in a house with no electricity. Light comes from fire, which they also use to cook. This family sleeps on a bed made of straw, and this is their toilet. To find water, they need to walk to natural sources and carry that water back home. Most families in Burundi live in extreme poverty, and that's also true for most people in these countries. But so far, our chart only includes about 3.6% of the world population. I'm going to keep adding more countries until we get to about a quarter of the population. We get mostly African countries like Ethiopia and Nigeria, and Asian countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh. I'm going to pick Bangladesh and see how people live there. The median income in Bangladesh is $4.78 per day. Each woman has an average of 2.3 children. This family has 5 people, and they live in a house with a metal roof. They have beds, they have access to a pipe well, which is how most people get their water in Bangladesh. They have a toilet and a place to wash their hands. They also have basic phones. Their house has electricity, like more than 99% of households in Bangladesh. This might not sound like a big deal, but in Portugal, a high-income country in the country where I'm from, if we go back to 1970, only 64% of the population had access to electricity. Some people think that countries like Bangladesh will always stay poor, but the reality is that Bangladesh in some aspects is already more developed than the Portugal my parents grew up.
All right, so we're leveling up, man. We're only on level 2, and we got electricity. We got at least a semi-private place to use the bathroom, and we got, an actual house with a legitimate roof and an actual bed. So I can't say that this is too bad. Of course, it's not going to be as great as places like America and things like that, but this is doable. This is not like super setback.
If we go back to our bubbles and add colors based on the income level according to the World Bank, we see that even though we're at the bottom 23% of the population, most countries in this chart are not considered low income. Bangladesh is considered medium income, or lower middle income to be precise. Most of the world population lives in middle income countries. A question that only 27% of my audience got right. I also got it wrong. In 2000, 29% of people lived in extreme poverty. Nowadays, that percentage has fallen to less than a third. In a single generation, billions transitioned out of poverty. And while that was happening, another quiet transformation took place. Millions of people transitioned out of their poor problem-solving skills with Brilliant, the sponsor of this video. Brilliant is a platform for learning math, computer science, data analysis. Let's keep adding countries until we reach half of the world's population. We now see India and other countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Let's see how people live in Indonesia. The median wage is around $6 per day.
All right, we got on average about 2 kids. We got an actual house. Like we actually got a brick fascia. My man even got a motorcycle, bike life. But we starting to get into a little bit more consideration of what I consider normal. But that's crazy, and they do that off of $5.78 a day. That's unique. So let's keep listening and see what's going on here.
Most families now live in urban areas, not rural. As countries develop, the population tends to migrate from the countryside into urban areas. This family of 4 lives in a house with a bathroom, a kitchen, bedrooms.
They actually got tile floors.
And other amenities we didn't see in the previous income levels. Motorbikes are a common means of transportation, and most people have access to internet and use smartphones. We're entering the richer half of the world. We now get mostly upper middle income countries from Latin America, Eastern Europe, Africa, and Asia, including China. Let's pick Brazil.
Tier 4, baby.
The median wage in Brazil is about
what's
$13
going on,
per
Ariana? How you
day.
doing?
And in Brazil, women have on
Thanks for
average
stopping in.
1.6 children. For the first time, we get a fertility rate below the replacement level.
All
Wealthier countries tend to have lower
We got
fertility
cars.
rates.
So we're moving up to the point where we got cars here. We got cobblestone roofs. We got cars. We got actual open and closable windows. We got more concrete structures. I'm doing fine, Rihanna. Thank you for stopping in, man. You like my first visitor, so that's pretty cool. For $13 a day, people are living a lot more better. So you figure, I'm comparing all these things to America. Like, I wish I could survive and my family could survive off $13 a day, where these people are. So something's wrong here.
Although hunger is still a problem in Brazil, more people die from obesity than undernutrition. As countries develop, the percentage of obese population also tends to increase. At this level of income, it's now common for people to have a car and a computer. Brazil is above the global average, but still far from the world's richest. If we add more bubbles, we start getting high-income countries.
Thank you for following me. I appreciate that.
Population, and I'm gonna pick Spain. The median income is $41 per day. In countries like Spain, most people live in good quality housing. They have access to decent healthcare, social security, and public facilities.
Alright, so
you also
at this
start
tier, people actually got houses, they got cars, they got public transportation, and they got healthcare.
getting the freedom to travel to almost everywhere. A Spanish citizen can travel to a total of 189 countries visa-free. For most of the world, that is not the case. If we look at the passport index of every country, we see that lower income countries have a lower number of destinations they can visit without a visa. The freedom to travel the world depends on the income level of your country. Despite having good living standards compared to the rest of the world, many people in these countries haven't enjoyed the economic growth we got in countries like Bangladesh or Indonesia. I spoke with economist Branko Milanovic, one of the researchers behind the famous chart explaining this. It's called the elephant curve. On the x-axis, we have the income percentile of the global population. The chart shows us how much income has grown across the population in the 20 years up to 2008. The people around the 50th percentile of income, mostly people in Asia, saw big gains. But then for the Western middle class, the curve flatlines.
people who are around the 75th, 80th percentile of the world income distribution, which means they are richer than the Chinese, had very slow growth, and in many cases actually growth of close to 0% per year over 20 years.
And meanwhile, the global top 1% captured a large share of the growth, riding the wave of globalization. In recent years, the curve
That 1% of people is the people that you see that you simply just say they got too much money. That's the Elons and the higher ups.
in the final 10% of the world's population, we find the wealthiest countries such as the US. The median wage in the US is about $62 per day. Living standards are not
So that was a significant jump from the previous tier to this tier. Like we're at $62 a day now. And think of how we live in America. Like, and honestly, not only the way that you might be living, but the way that people that you know aren't living the best are living here.
not super different from the previous tier, but people can afford more things here. Americans tend to have bigger houses, bigger cars, and they can buy more things in general. Most Americans are quite rich compared to the rest of the world.
It is 11 to 12% of Americans who are in the global top 1%. And I think many of them don't realize that.
But this doesn't mean every American is rich. So far, we've only been looking at country averages, but inside each of these bubbles, there are both rich people and poor people.
Very true.
We need to look at the inequality within countries. The bubbles now show how much income the top 10% earn in each country. In the US, the top 10% get 47% of the income. The country with the highest income inequality is South Africa, where the top 10% get 65% of the income. And we're talking about income, which tells you how much money someone earns. But we should also look at the wealth, the accumulated worth of everything you own. It includes your savings, but also your house, your car, and your investments, making it arguably a better indicator of inequality. If we switch the chart from income to wealth inequality, the gap becomes even bigger. South Africa also has the highest wealth inequality, with the top 10% holding almost 86% of the total wealth. On the other end, in the Netherlands, they own 45%. Wealth inequality within countries has generally increased in the last decades. Each country has a different trend, but in the US, the top 10% owns 71% of the wealth in 2021, more than 25 years earlier. This number also went up in all of the world's top 10 economies. This can have negative impacts, and several economists argue that
So essentially what he's saying is the top 10% of most countries is owning more of the country. So the rich are in a way getting very richer, because we're talking wealth, we're not talking income, we're talking just ownership. So people with money, families with money are buying more and keeping more than the people without money and the people who don't have money. That's the same thing. It's crazy I just said that. But that's what I thought, actually.
the more unequal a society, the weaker its institutions tend to become over time. The World Inequality Report argues that this was not inevitable, but a political choice. They argue that in the 80s, leaders like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher pushed a series of policies that made private wealth go up and public wealth go down. So their argument here is that if governments own less, then in theory they're less capable of tackling inequality. But from now on, we're not going to talk about countries anymore. We're entering global wealth tiers. If your wealth is at least $1 million, then you're part of the global 1%. This could mean having $1 million in your bank account or just owning an expensive house. There are 82 million people in this group, and they own 38% of the world's wealth.
Damn.
To make it to the top 0.01%,
All right, so top 1% is super, super, super impressive. I mean, you would need, I feel as though you would actually have to be, I don't want to say that. In most cases, you'll probably have to be born into that. It's going to be very, very rare that you get to that top 1% off just muscle. Now, you do have those exceptions. You know, you have those Elon Musk, you have those Bezos people, like they just got there and they probably never going to let go of that spot. But 0.001%, I want to hear this because I can't even fathom how you get there.
need a wealth of at least $21 million. There are about 800,000 people in this group, and they own 11% of the world's wealth. It's estimated that private jets are used by about 0.003% of the population, which would be about 30% of this group. If your wealth is at least $1 billion, then you're considered a billionaire. There are roughly 3,000 billionaires in the world, and they own 3% of the world's wealth. Over the years, the wealth of global billionaires has gone up, and the same is true for the people in the previous tier. but one billionaire takes the #1 position on Forbes. As of the making of this video, Elon Musk is the wealthiest person in the world with a net worth of almost $400 billion. Between 2000...
All right, leave a comment down the bottom. If you had almost $400 billion, what would you think your life would be like? Please leave a comment in the bottom. I want to hear this. Honestly, don't get me wrong. I'm 35 years old. I know what it is to go without. I know what it is to have. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of fun with $400 billion. Now, the only thing that scares me about having $400 billion is I think you're going to lose a lot of the qualities that make you human. Because if you got that much money, it's not necessarily a matter of, you know, really being sad. It's a matter of how much does it cost to be happy. And that's kind of scary when you really think deep about that.
2020 and 2024, Elon Musk's wealth grew at an average rate of $1,300 per second. If Elon Musk saw a $100 bill on the floor, it would literally not be worth his time to pick it up.
Yeah.
So now that we've reached the top, let's revisit question 2. Has global inequality gone up since 2000?
I got number 1
Most of my
wrong.
audience said yes. And that makes sense. We've seen the rise of billionaires in the top 0.01% and increasing inequality within countries. But the answer, to my own surprise, is C. Global inequality has actually gone down. But how's that possible?
To be very sort of blunt, reducing inequality
both of those
between
wrong.
Malawi and the UK is much more important than reducing inequality within the UK.
Although inequality within countries went up in many regions, the inequality between countries has gone down. The global top 10% now owns 74% of the wealth, which is less than before. And the bottom 50% own 2.1% of the wealth, which is not much, but still higher than in 2000. Developing countries are catching up. If we go back to 1990, the bubble chart looked like this. Almost 40% of the world lived in low-income countries. As the years passed, billions climbed out of poverty, and now most of the world lives in middle-income countries. This doesn't mean that people aren't struggling or that we shouldn't worry about rising inequality within countries, but personally, I also think it's important that we acknowledge the progress that has been made. Most people, myself included, fail these questions because we don't have an accurate picture of the world. That's the video for today. Thank you for watching. This one took a bit longer with all the data animations. If you were able to get both questions...
Again, so shout out to Memeable Data for the video. I thought this was a really well put together video. Actually educated me as well too. I actually got those questions wrong. But if y'all could, like I said, check out the other videos and we'll go from there. I'll see y'all next time. I'm gonna start this over and record another one. Go on.